Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next segment of Railfan Fest, where we're going to be taking two very popular subject matters, art and railways, and combining together with the help of this segment's guest. My name's Joe, and joining me today is self-employed illustrator, airbrush painter, and Photoshop guru, Tom Connell. Tom, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks, Joe. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. Excellent. Thank you for joining us. So, first question, really, I think, would be rail fanning, railways, trains. How did you get into it, and what are your interests in that area?
Oh God, where do I start? I've been doing this. I've been into trains a long time. I mean, my dad used to take me down the station when I was a tiny kid to see the trains, and because in those days it was all diesel hydraulics, so it's quite a long time ago. And because from that, when they started withdrawing the warships, which were my absolute favourites. I wrote to Swindon Works. I was only a little lad, and I said, "Why are you withdrawing the warships?" And I didn't expect anything, but I got an answer. I got an answer from them, and they sent me some little signs out of a cab of one of the warships, and I thought, "Oh, that's amazing!" So I did a painting. I did a painting of the one that they came out of, Cockade. I thought no more of that. I sent it in to them as a sort of thank you very much, this little painting. And then I got a personal invitation from the works manager at Swindon to come around Swindon Works. And it was sort of at least 2 hours in there, and they showed me absolutely everything in there. It's just the management carrying me, taking me around the works and showed me how to. They showed me. They got the guy to make a spring in the forge and everything. It was amazing. And go into the pattern shop where you could see all the old wooden patterns for the steam engines, nameplates and everything, all that stuff there. And when I came away, they said, "Well, okay, do you want to take something with you?" Oh yeah, that's great. So he took me into this room, and there's all these warship nameplates lying there. I thought, "Oh, this is brilliant." Can I have one of those? No, you can't have one of those because they're going to collector's corner. But they gave me a number of the one I painted, Cockade, and I still got that to this day. And I think from there on, I was completely hooked.
I don't blame you. I mean, getting access to the Swindon Works, for those that don't know, I mean, it was really the centre point for the Great Western Railway in terms of manufacturing, and right from the early steam days, and as you say, right through to the dieselisation and incredible access. I can totally understand why you would get so enthusiastic if you were able to get access to that, and to take something home with you is even better, I suppose.
Yeah, and because the thing was, they got the guy, when I went there, that my little painting was hanging up in his office. They'd actually framed it there, and it was hanging up in the works manager's office, where HR Roberts, that's where it was. He'd actually been put in there to close the works down, but never mind. But when they did close the works, eventually they sent me the picture back, so I've got that back as well now.
Ah, bonus. So going on to the art side of things, then how did that come about? Is it something that you studied? Is it something that you had just got into as a hobby?
It's just something I was, once again, right from being really tiny, little kid. I've always drawn, and that's drawing and trains. That was it. And because I used to draw knights in armour when I was a kid, that was my obsession then. But then, because once I got the railway bug, I was drawing trains all the time. Not very well, but a bit of a stickler for detail. I just got more and more into it, So they get more and more detailed as I was getting older. I sort of studied as a graphic designer. That's what I did. I only did art college for a year. Just did a general foundation at Maidenhead, and from there I did a 3-year course to train as a graphic designer. And after that, a few people said, "You're really good at the drawing side of it. Why don't you try being an illustrator?" And so I built up a portfolio of work. Because by then I was getting really good with the detail stuff, not trains. It was all over the stuff because I was trying to get advertising work, and I went up to London and I taking the folio around all the agents up in London, and I got myself a really good London agent. And for years and years and years, and up to this day, I'm still doing advertising work, lots of ad campaigns and all that sort of stuff. And that's you know, over the course of my career, that's been my main work that I've done. Ad work, you know, I mean, packaging, and I've done a lot of publishing stuff as well. A lot of kids' books, those sort of things. Done quite a lot on Harry Potter recently, believe it or not. Yeah, and when I was at the agent, I was hand painting. I was doing, actually using paintbrushes with designers gouache, and they taught me into changing to airbrush, because they thought that would really suit my style. And yeah, I did that for 20 odd years, being an airbrush artist. And because I've still got mountains of my airbrush artworks here, because in those days you used to send them to the printers and they would send them back at the end of it. You know, so you get your artworks back, or most of them anyway. And obviously things move on, and then it goes to, you get computer technology coming in, and the airbrush is suddenly history. You know, and they're saying, "Well, look, come on, you've got to get on the Mac now, but you've got to start doing stuff on the Mac." So that's where I've been ever since. Really, I've been working in Photoshop pretty much flat out ever since. And it came in sort of full circle with the railway stuff, where LNER contacted me a couple of years ago with their Azuma trains, their new Azuma trains, and they said, "Would you be interested in doing posters for us?" I thought, what? Yeah, yes, please. And I've done loads of Azuma posters for them. And since I've been putting those online, it's been railway work non-stop ever since. It's fantastic. Yeah, all sorts of things.
No, we can see very briefly the Azuma train behind you there, just to the right-hand side. So, I mean, that must have been a massive thing for you. And obviously quite a popular service now. They've relaunched that. So focusing a little bit more on the two coming together, so the art and the railway work, and as you say, you've done work for quite a lot of notable brands and marketing material for, I can see the London Underground, LNER, Shell, Tesco.
There's a few you don't know about yet as well.
Oh well, so we've got more coming, which is very exciting.
Can't say yet.
No, of course. But a significant section of that has obviously been recently some of the Dovetail Games things with the Train Sim World artwork, and any simulator players listening and watching this will have seen, no doubt, your incredible detailed artwork for some of the new the routes that have been released recently for Train Sim World too. So, but I know originally, or a few decades ago, you did something for EWS. Was that sort of something that sparked the whole railway and art coming together?
Yeah, it did, absolutely. It was because I've always bought Railway magazine. I'll get a plug in for Nigel Harris there. He's a good lad. And they had a competition. I mean, when Ed Burkhardt took over all the freight companies, the order sectors, and started EWS, and they did a competition in Rail magazine for design a logo, and I thought nothing of it. I thought I'd just have a go, So I came up with a couple of ideas. Actually, I worked two of them up fairly final. I'm glad I sent that one in. So, yeah, I'm glad I sent that one in. It came up really well, and there's I've got that out of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
That was presented to me at Toten.
Oh yeah.
I got a cab ride as well. I got a cab ride from. I could pick any freight train that EWS ran, and I picked the one, the China Clay from St Blasey to Irvine. So
oh wow.
I only did it. I only did it as far as Newport, but that was really good. In a cab of a Class 60, that was really great. Especially going through the Severn Tunnel, bizarrely, because that you feel the power of it. It sort of rolls down into the tunnel, and then when he gets to the bottom, you feel the whole thing vibrating as he's putting the power on to get out the other side. It's really that was great. And then of course they did this presentation at Toten as well with the for their publicity guys and everything with their new logo. And I had to unveil it on a Class 58. So there's me sitting in the cab there, looking out the window with my logo underneath it on the transfer on the side. It was 58037. Yeah.
Incredible.
So
I mean, for rail fans of sort of certainly a younger generation, from the 90s onwards, the EWS livery and logo is iconic and something we still see a lot on the network today. I
Yeah,
mean, it's something I remember seeing at Bescot sidings. There was always little 08s and 09s sort of pottering around with the EWS logo, and of course there's
that's the,
Class 66s as well with the livery. So
yeah. It still comes past me because I live next to the Berks and Ants line. So you get the stone trains with it on, and you get the tanks going into Thiel as well with it on sometimes. And yeah, still seeing it about all over the place. Always get a buzz out of seeing it as well. It's really good.
I can imagine it's part of railway history in the UK, which is incredible. So I mean, it's excellent. So I mean, obviously, there's a lot of people out there that are into art, and there's a lot of people out there that are into railways, and to see the two come together in such a successful way as you've done, I think is really interesting. But as you mentioned before, you've not just done railway art; you've done art for other things that are not railway related. What's different about doing pieces based on railways compared to, say, motoring or landscapes or anything? What specifically do you look at getting right, or do you focus on when you're looking specifically at the railway stuff?
Well, technically, because really, I'm more. I suppose you call me a technical illustrator, really, because that's the stuff I like doing. But the only difference really is, obviously, when you're doing nuts and bolts on a car, they still got to be right, But with at least when I'm doing the trains, it's something I'm really interested in. That's the only big difference. I love doing. I've done loads of cars, and I've got a thing coming out with that fairly soon as well with some cars, but I can't say much about that either. Yeah, the only big difference. I mean, it's just I have to get things right, and sometimes that can be a bit tedious when you're looking for references and stuff. But with the train stuff, I mean, the dovetail stuff is fantastic for me, absolutely fantastic, because it's. I'm pretty knowledgeable about the British stuff, the British trains, but you do a lot of foreign stuff as well. And to me, I have to research that, and I'm loving all the research on all that as well. Because it's whereas if it was a car I didn't like, I thought, oh my God, I've got to find a picture of this now. I've got to find a picture of that. But digging around for the stuff for you guys, I'm just loving it. So, but yeah, that's the only difference really. It's just I still have to get. Because for the rivet counters out there's almost certainly something wrong. I'm used to that, but with this level of detail, you're bound to get something wrong somewhere. But I try my best, try my best to get it right. But that's the only difference really. Is I just really like doing the railway stuff, and for the last 2 years, it's fairly solid railway work. Yeah.
No, that's excellent, and it's good to hear that that's obviously keeping you busy. Not so much, not just the dovetail game stuff, but railway stuff in general.
Yeah.
You point out there, as you say, you've got to do a fair bit of research, particularly for railways or locomotives that you might not be so familiar with, being based in the UK. The rail fans, as you say, they have an eye for detail, as I'm sure you do as a technical illustrator. What is it, do you think, that people look at most when you see these fantastic pictures of locomotives, like the LNER illustration you got in the background, or the the LGV or the Southeastern artwork that for Dovetail Games? What do you start with? What's the process? Do you kind of go based on the overall look? Do you go from the base upwards? Do you work from the width of the rails?
No,
How does it go?
I from the initial brief with whoever's briefing me, I get a little picture in my head, right? And then I will come up with something like, something like that.
Excellent.
Right? A really, really basic sketch. Very, very basic. And it sort of brews from there on. And then I will gradually, if I'm happy with that, I will work that up into something a little more complete. I start getting references of the trains from that angle, and then I will draw something a little bit better, and then I will send that over to the client for approval. If they're happy with that, or if they want to make any changes, that's the stage to make them at before we get into anything too serious. If they're happy with that, well, then I will work it up into a fairly finished line drawing with all the detail on. Then from that, because I work in Photoshop, I will make that my sort of base layer, And then I will put block colour in. I block colour in just to make sure everything's going to work colour-wise. And from then on, it's a very laborious process of just sitting there and working on an area at a time. I will tend to do the backgrounds first and save the train till last. No particular reason. If the background looks okay, then I get the train to fit in. Yeah, I never really thought about how it worked really, but that's pretty much the process I do. But it is very laborious, I must admit. It all starts off with that little sketch. I have it in my head. It turns into that tiny sketch, and from there on, I will work it up into something hopefully reasonable to look at.
It's always interesting to get an eye on the kind of background process. Something else that's quite a regular feature of Railfan Fest is we've got a number of segments where members of Dovetail Games crew are giving details about the process of building those locos in the virtual world. And I suppose in many ways there's almost a bit of a parallel between what they're doing on a computer, and on using the software that they've got with the illustrative work that you're doing on a piece of paper or on Photoshop. You're starting
it sounds very similar.
Framework. It's interesting to see that parallel. So you mentioned obviously that you're keen on the British stuff, and obviously being based in the UK, that's what you're familiar with. You've obviously got quite a considerable back catalogue now of railway works that you've done, particularly with Dovetail Games, but also with other clients as well. What are your favourite bits to work on? Do you have one piece that you're really proud of, or any one project?
Yeah, and it's one I did for you actually, and it's the southeastern one with the HS1 with the bridge. The Dartford crossing, and that was a pig. That was a pig to draw. That one. Very, very complicated perspective going on there. But it's the most pleasing one I've done. I think it's. I'm really chuffed with that.
And of course, I think there's two trains in that one. They're going side by side.
That's it. Yeah.
So does that make things more difficult for you, or do you just sort of switch them around? Or?
No, not really. I mean, it was just the whole. Working at the whole perspective on that. There's so many different things going on there, especially with the curve on the bridge and everything. It's just very, very difficult to make it look right. And the perspective on that bridge isn't quite right, but it had to be wrong to look right. When it was right, I did it right originally, and it looked wrong. This sounds peculiar, but it needed a sort of a bit of a visual twist to make it look right. So I had to twist the bridge around a bit because it just didn't look right to start with. It wasn't pleasing on my eye, but now I'm over the moon with that one. I think you guys actually animated it, didn't you, on one of your things? Because I'm sure I saw the two trains coming together slightly on something.
Oh, good. Well, it's good to hear that we're offering you, satisfying work in that regard. But it's a fantastic piece, and it really illustrates well the add-on, the DLC, and that's part of what you do. You make illustrations that advertise things so well, which is fantastic.
Great. I'm glad people like them. It's really, really good when you get feedback, positive feedback.
No, very good. And of course, moving aside from the Dovetail stuff, other railway projects, I know you've done work for a couple of sort of locomotive groups, and I think a couple of charities and things, and some of your work is available to buy, I think. Is that right?
Well, I literally just done my first limited edition print for many yees of HST, of a ScotRail HST, one of their into 7 city trains. And I've just done 100 prints, and I've got a handful left. And I'll tell you what, I'll donate one for your Railfest.
Oh, excellent! That's fantastic.
So you can do whatever you want to do with it. It's one of those.
Wow, fantastic! Look at that. That's great, Tom. So I think we've got one final question for you, which is obviously you've explained some of the fantastic work that you've done over the years, and some of the clients that you've worked for. And I know you perhaps can't talk about things that you're working on because it's confidential and things like that. You have clients that you have to respect, and that's fair enough. But what would you like to work on? What if there was one locomotive or one route maybe, or one company that you'd like to work for? What would you like to be drawing in the railway world?
First generation British diesels. That's it. That's my thing. Yeah, definitely. Especially any of the hydraulics, any of the Western region hydraulics.
Excellent. Well, given the quality of your work and how popular it is, not just in, as I say, in the dovetail game side, but elsewhere in the railway world, I'm sure there'll be plenty more work coming your way. But thanks very much for taking the time to talk to us. It's been really great to understand how those two worlds of art and railways can really come together in such a successful way. And as I say, hopefully you'll get a lot more work coming your way in the future.
Oh, great. Thanks very much. Thanks
no
a lot.
problem, Tom. Thank you.
Good to speak to you. Cheers.
Thanks to Tom for joining us for that latest section of Railfan Fest. You can check out all of Tom's work over on his website at tomconnellstudio.com. Link is at the bottom of the screen. Coming up next, we have a section on Train Sim World 2, where a lot of Tom's work has been featured in recent weeks and months. But thank you very much for joining this section, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the event.